Hello, welcome to the self-learning platform by Dr. Sushma Singh. Today we start Unit 5, Moderates and Extremists, Dadabhai Naoroji, M.G. Ranade, and B.G. Tilak. Today we discuss importance of Lal Bal Pal. The extremist ideology created a leadership trio of Lal Bal Pal. Lala Lajpat Rai, Bal Gangadhar Tilak, and Vipin Chandra Pal, who, while critiquing the moderates, altered the nationalist vocabulary by incorporating Swadeshi boycott and national education. So popular were Lal Bal Pal in Punjab, Maharashtra, and Bengal, respectively, that moderates seem to have lost their credibility in these areas. Of the trio, Bal Gangadhar Tilak, rooted in Maharashtra, was perhaps the most articulate militant leader of this phase of freedom struggle. Long before his active involvement in the Congress, Tilak articulated his nationalist ideas in both Kesari in Marathi and Maratha in English. In 1893, he transformed the traditional religious Ganpati festival into a campaign for nationalist ideas through patriotic songs and speeches. Similarly, in 1896, he introduced the Shivaji festival to inspire the youth by drawing upon the patriotism of Shivaji in opposition to the Mughal ruler Aurangzeb. It would be wrong, however, to blame as a revivalist since he supported most enthusiastically the Ganpati and Shivaji festivals. In fact, Tilak himself responded to this charge by saying that these festivals were intended to give to the peoples a sense of belonging and to evoke in them a pride in their past. He also dismissed the idea that he was in favor of bringing back the reign of Shivaji or the Peshwas, while arguing strongly for popular and representative government in opposition to the Oriental ideas of revivalism. He rose to prominence by organizing a successful campaign for boycott of foreign clothes in Maharashtra in 1896 in protest against the imposition of taxes on cotton. His involvement in the no tax campaign in areas adversely affected by the 1896-97 famine in Maharashtra had clearly articulated his mission of expanding the Congress base by incorporating the peasants, a constituency that was simply beyond the moderates' purview. By deciding a severe the plague victims in Pune during the 1897, Tilak became a leader of the people who automatically were drawn to him for humanism. Apart from his role in serving the victims, he wrote several pieces in Kesari condemning the arrangements and the steps the government undertook in combating this deadly disease. In fact, the killing of Rand, the chairman of the Plague Commission in Pune in 1898, was attributed to the popular resentment against official measures, even in the government document. Tilak was arrested following the assassination but was released soon because of lack of proof of his involvement. Two important features in Tilak's political philosophy separated him from the moderate thinkers. First, unlike the moderates, he argued for gradual introduction of democratic institutions in India. Tilak insisted on immediate Swaraj or self rule. His concept of Swaraj was not complete independence, but a government constituted by the Indian themselves that rules according to the wishes of the people or their representatives. Similarly to the British executive that decides on policies, impose and remove taxes, and determine the allocation of public expenditure. Indians should have the right to run their own government, to make laws, to appoint the administrators, as well as to spend the tax revenue. This is one dimension of his thought. The second dimension relates to the notion of prajagho, or the right of the people to resist an authority that loses legitimacy. In Tilak's conceptualization, if the government fails to fulfill their obligation to the ruled and becomes tyrannical, it lacks legitimacy to rule. What is interesting to note that Tilak's Projagroho also justifies the enactment of laws to prevent unlawful activities of the people. If contextualized, this idea makes sense because he was aware that a total rejection of government would invite atrocities on the nationalists who had neither the organizational backing nor a strong support base among the people. So, his support for governmental preventative mechanisms was strategically conditioned and textured. Tilak was a nationalist par excellence. In view of his uncritical acceptance of Vedanta philosophy and orthodox Hindu rituals and practices, Tilak was accused of being sectarian in multi religious India. That he upheld the most reactionary form of Hindu orthodox was evident in his opposition to the 1890 Age of Consent Bill that sought to raise the age of consummation of marriage of girls from 10 to 12 years. While the moderate spokesman Ranade hailed the bill for its progressive social role, Tilak found in this legislation an unwarranted intervention in Hindu social life. Similarly, his involvement in the Cow Protection Society alienated the Muslims to a large extent from the extremist campaign. Tilak's argument in favor of cow protection drew upon the scaredness of cow in Hindu belief, disregarding completely the importance of beef in Muslim diet. Furthermore, the organization of national festival in honor of Shivaji, the Hindu hero of Marathas, and also redefining of an essentially Hindu religious festival, the Ganpati Utsav, in nationalist terms, set the ideological tenor of Tilak's political philosophy, where Muslims seemed to be peripheral, if not entirely bypassed. It is necessary to pause here for a moment and reassess Tilak's worldview critically with reference to the context in which it was articulated. There is no denying that underlying all these religious forms lay the national patriotic purpose. Under the cover of religious festivals, Tilak sought to create a nationalist platform for an effective mobilization against the British that would not allow, for obvious reasons, a political campaign adversely affecting the imperial interest. Under conditions of severe governmental repression of all political agitation and organization, before the nationalist movement had struck roots among the masses, the use of such apparently religious and orthodox forms of nationalist outpouring seems to be strategically conditioned, and Tilak emerged as a master planner in refining these in the pre Gandhian phase of India's freedom struggle. So, not only did he articulate the voice of protest in a unique vocabulary, but also he expanded the constituency of the nationalist politics by proclaiming the supposed spiritual superiority of the ancient Hindu civilization to its Western counterpart. In other words, Tilak played a historic role in the construction of a new language of politics by being critical of the denationalized and westernized moderate leaders who blindly clung to typical Western liberal values, disregarding their indigenous counterparts, while articulating their opposition to the British rule. It is possible to argue that Tilak had a wider appeal, for his campaign was couched in a language that drew upon values rooted in Indian culture and civilization, in contrast with what the moderates upheld, which were completely alien. So Tilak was not merely a nationalist leader with tremendous political acumen. He himself represented a new wave of nationalist movement that created an automatic space for it by providing the most powerful and persuasive critique of modern philosophy and articulating his nationalist ideology in a language that was meaningful to those it was addressed. This is how Tilak is transcendental, and his ideas of Swadeshi, boycott, and strike had a significant sway on Gandhi, who refined and well tuned some of the typical extremist methods in a completely changed socio-economic and political context. When the nationalist struggle had its tentacles not only in the district towns but also in the villages that unfortunately remained peripheral in the pre Gandhian days of freedom struggle. Here we want to wind up this lecture and thank you so much for your attention.